So recently, Screen Crush put out a new video about a possible Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi returning. A buddy of mine sent me the link to it, and out of curiosity, being the Spider-Man fan that I am, I gave it a listen, and it certainly got me thinking about the possibility of Spider-Man 4 coming out. Now, to put a disclaimer in there, I'm aware that it might not happen because Sony's already focused on Tom Holland's Spider-Man trilogy, his new trilogy that's coming up. Marvel's also in a restructuring phase too, because their films in the last couple of years haven't exactly gone the way that they've been hoping. This may or may not be in their wheelhouse. On the other hand, this could be something that Marvel needs in order to win back the audience's trust. More than likely, I'm going to rehash what was said in the Screen Crush video by Ryan Arey and his co-hosts, but as far as my own personal take, ever since No Way Home, well, actually since Spider-Man 3 back in 2007, me and many other Spider-Man fans have been wanting a Spider-Man 4, hoping in a way to repair the damage that was done from Spider-Man 3. I'm not a lover nor am I a hater of Spider-Man 3. I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. I've already gone over it in my reviews back in the day, so you can check them out if you want to. With Sony's handling of Spider-Man ever since 2007, it hasn't really been an easy ride. But if it did lead to Tobey Maguire's return, in No Way Home at least, I'm really happy that that happened because it was able to cure some of the woes at least, where we got to see a glimpse of what his Peter Parker was up to after so many years of wondering what could have been from that trilogy, or his portrayal. And of course, fans of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man had a similar reaction. With the return of both Spider-Man actors from the past, naturally a lot of people wanted to know if they were going to continue their stories. To get a consensus, I think it's split down the middle. I would prefer to have a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to an Amazing Spider-Man 3 if they could find a way to repair some of the damage that was done in the first two movies. But Sony has recently come out and said that they're not interested in doing an Amazing Spider-Man 3. And to be honest with you, knowing the track record that they've had with Andrew Garfield, I can't speak for anybody at the studio, but I would imagine they possibly don't want to bring up those old wounds again. I think Andrew would just rather work with Marvel Studios instead because it's pretty clear when you watch him in No Way Home that he had a lot more fun playing the part there. If he were to show up as like a guest appearance every once in a while in a multiversal event like Secret Wars or maybe even further in-depth Spider-Verse movie in live action, I would be fine with that. And the same thing could be said for Tobey Maguire's portrayal. Now in his case, some will argue that he's too old to play the part and he shouldn't come back in his own solo movie. I would understand where that comes from, but my response would also be, why not? I mean, Robert Downey Jr. was in his 40s when he was playing Iron Man and nobody said anything there. I know that Spider-Man's meant to be a young man or a young kid as a superhero, but I also think something unique could be pulled from Spider-Man in his older years, if he's like 40 or 50 years old. Probably been a few comics out there that have touched on that side of Spider-Man. I think you could still have him be a relatable protagonist, he's just not as young as he used to be. You could have it be like a style of like Logan or Batman Beyond, where he's passing the baton to a younger Spider-Person. His daughter, Mayday Parker, which they touched a little bit on in the recent Spider-Verse film from last year. Or maybe it could be like a Miles Morales type of thing. We've already established that Miles is a worthy character, so they could veer in that direction if Spider-Man 4 were to get made. It would also just be a one-and-done thing for Tobey Maguire, as far as a solo Spider-Man movie goes, because, I mean, a lot of us love Tobey Maguire, this guy included, but he's not getting any younger. He's gonna be 50 next year. There's gonna be a time where he's gonna have to hang it up for good. But he has said in the past that he was willing to do Spider-Man 4, even after Spider-Man 3. Seeing him come back in No Way Home, it's pretty clear that he had a great time doing it. He also went on to say in an interview that he did after the film's release that he didn't want to close the book on his character, but provide certain resolutions. I'm only guessing here, and I'm not the only person to say this. He probably has had some discussions with both the people at Marvel and Sony. They might have something in mind for him, whether it's like a guest appearance in Secret Wars, or maybe a possible Spider-Man 4. Who knows? And with Sam Raimi returning to the director's chair in Multiverse of Madness, he proved that he still has the goods when it comes to directing a comic book movie. You could complain about certain things that the movie showcased, but it's pretty clear that his passion for the source material was still there. It's no surprise that Sam Raimi is a fan of Marvel Comics, particularly that era of the Marvel Universe, so I think it's pretty safe to say that he would not be opposed to coming back to Spider-Man 4 again. Because the contract that Sony has with Marvel, legally Sony cannot make a solo Spider-Man movie unless Marvel Studios is involved, and the same thing can be said vice versa. Why do you think we've had all these other Sony Spider-Man projects and Spider-Man's nowhere in sight, except for the mid-credit scene in Venom 2? After the recent response to Madam Web, again, I can't speak for the studio execs at Sony, but there were some articles that came out saying that they were going to try to refine their strategy or change some things going forward. I would like to think that maybe they're considering a possible Spider-Man 4. Thomas Hayden Church said that there is a possibility that it could happen. Sam Raimi even said at a convention that he was at not that long ago that there is a slight chance that it could happen, but it has to happen at the right time. Kirsten Dunst even said that she would be willing to come back. Tobey hasn't ruled it out either, so maybe there is something there. Maybe there's some talks going on that we don't know about. I don't know. I can't say for sure. Could it happen? Possibly. Might it not happen? That's also a possibility. Either way, I don't think it's the last time we're going to see Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I still think that he has at least 1 or 2 more outings left in him, even if it's just a guest appearance in Secret Wars where he interacts with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. I know a lot of Marvel fans, including myself, would love to see something like that. The legality of it all does kind of make me wonder how much creative control could Sam Raimi have? He's already established a name for himself in the industry, so I don't really think that people at Marvel necessarily are going to step on his toes. I think Sony is really the ones that we should worry about. But Kevin Feige was involved as an associate producer on the original Spider-Man film. You can even see his name right here in the opening credits. He knows what the guy's capable of. He knows that he has a passion for the character and for the source material. I mean, ultimately, Sony has to give the final seal of approval, but if Marvel could somehow be involved in the making of this, that might actually be a big benefit. There would obviously have to be a few things required since this would technically take place in the MCU timeline. Even if it's a variant universe. You could possibly have a tie-in to Secret Wars, maybe a couple of mentions of what he did in No Way Home, depending on what point in time this happens. It could also be a Logan type of story where we see Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker dealing with the fact that he's a veteran crime fighter and how he might eventually have to hang it up. And he even said to Andrew in No Way Home that he and MJ were able to figure things out, which was slightly hinted at the end of Spider-Man 3, that they were starting to repair the damage that was done. We might get to see what they've been up to for the last several years, however long it's been since we last saw them. Maybe they could show that they have a kid together and that she's starting to develop her own powers, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a recent thing in Marvel Comics. As for someone like myself, I have been thinking about Spider-Man 4 for a long time. I've seen the storyboards that have come out showing us that he could have fought Mysterio or the Vulture, but now things have changed. What other villains could they use? Maybe you could have Mysterio show up as like a side villain that he fights every once in a while, or Shocker. Or maybe you could have him show the Vulture, maybe in like a flashback of some kind. I've seen various ideas from people that they could use the Hobgoblin, trying to honor the legacy of Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn, or maybe the Agent Venom storyline involving Flash Thompson, or they could even go the Dr. Connor's Lizard route, which at one point they were considering doing. This stuff has also been talked about in the Screen Crush video, so I'm not adding anything new. Since Tobey has fought the Lizard in that other universe, he could see that and tell his Dr. Connors, no, this is not going to work out. You're going to turn into a monster if you do this. It would be a repeat of what we've seen in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movies, where a mentor of his has an experiment that goes wrong. But they could add a different flavor to it, since Tobey has seen a variant of Kirk Connors in Tom Holland's universe. So that could add further to the tension, and maybe they could throw his family into the mix, which is something that they considered doing in Amazing Spider-Man 1, but they cut out those scenes entirely. Spider-Man 4 could very well be the chance to rectify some of that. And I think that ultimately, since I'm on that subject, Spider-Man 4 I think could really repair a lot of the damage and provide a love letter to not only the fans of that era of Spider-Man, but even fans of that era of the comic book movie genre. As far as my choices of what villains they could use, I think it would be between the Lizard or the Hobgoblin route. Yeah, I know it's really easy to fall back on the Green Goblin Hobgoblin route, but in comparison to Venom, I think that's actually a lot more powerful of an adversary for Spider-Man to go up against. In the case of Spider-Man 4 being made, I would not hate that, to be honest with you. Not at all. Again, this is all a what-if possibility. There's no guarantees that this is going to happen, but there's no guarantees that it won't happen either. If Zack Snyder's Justice League cut can see the light of day somehow, why can't Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4 have a similar outcome? There's a lot of good ways and a lot of bad ways it can go too. I mean, we've seen how Michael Keaton's Batman Return panned out in The Flash last year. Didn't exactly go the way I was hoping. Other fans feel the same way too. But with Raimi and Maguire and Kevin Feige involved, I don't really think we have that much to worry about. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. I would love to see Spider-Man 4 happen. It would really mean a lot to me and fans of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. It may or may not happen, but ultimately I think Tobey Maguire will show up in Secret Wars in some capacity. And if that's really all he's going to show up in, I think I can live with that. But anyway, what are your guys' thoughts? Do you want to see Spider-Man 4, or do you think it's better to just leave it in the Secret Wars route? Either way, just comment below and tell me what your thoughts are on this topic, and as always, see you in the next one.